So with autumn already halfway over, I made it my mission to check out the winter of our current 007 and see No Time to Die. Directed and co-written by Cary Fukunaga and starring noted Weekend enthusiast Daniel Craig, Léa Seydoux, Ana de Armas, and Rami Malek. And it was time well spent, but the clock in question is running slow. We open on James Bond shooting you in the face, of course, but after that, a remote cabin and a snow-capped forest, where a little French girl tends to her drunk mother. As she does, a menacing masked figure descends on their abode, sending the kid fleeing to her father's secret room, where we see a Spectre ring amidst more than a few passports and camera feeds. The mysterious man blames the dad, who audiences may remember as Mr. White from Spectre, for killing his family before gunning mom down. He goes for the girl next, but she returns fire, fracturing his disguise and then plunging into the icy water outside, upon which her pursuer rescues her. Cut to many years hence, and that girl is Madeleine Swann, taking a dip in sunny Italy with James Bond, who assures her that we have all the time in the world. Their holiday is short-lived, however, as after a mournful Bond pays tribute at Vesper Lynd's tomb, he's set upon by Spectre goons, who taunt him with the revelation. Madeleine works for them. Heartbroken, Bond rescues Madeleine and speeds the two of them to safety, but only long enough to abandon her on a commuter train. 5 years later, a biohazard research facility is infiltrated by a squad of ruthless agents, who steal a sample of something deadly and abscond with one surviving scientist. It's a job for 007, but he's currently in a tropical bungalow off the grid. That is, until Felix Leiter calls him out of retirement to pick up a lead on the kidnapped scientist. What comes next will force James to confront not only his past but his future, because whatever grudges he may bear, a menacing new foe has an even bigger one, and a plan for catastrophe aimed right at everything Bond holds dear. No Time to Die marks the 25th film in the James Bond canon. Compared to this 50-plus year run, Marvel flexing about sustaining a cinematic universe for only a decade is adorable. In that half-century, audiences have witnessed some majestic highs, some monumental lows, and 6 007s. As to whom among those secret agent men is the best, I've long accepted it's largely a matter of one's generation. As a 90s kid, I've always been a Brosnan boy myself, and GoldenEye for N64 certainly puts an extra thumb on the scales. Yet objectively, blonde bruiser Daniel Craig has had the longest haul, and we arrive now at what is very publicly his final bow. For the end of an era then, No Time to Die rolls out the red carpet like never before for capital T themes, chiefly letting go of the past as both text and subtext, and while the cynical may see an attempt to wipe the self-mythologizing slate clean a la The Last Jedi, I was willing to meet the script halfway as a wistful send-off for the Bond with the longest tenure in the tux. There's some gags at the expense of his age and macho proclivities, giving him a perfect response to a woman's admission that I have a thing for old Rex, before she exploits his one-track mind for a bedroom confrontation. There's also a gee-whiz CIA operator who gushes about being a fan of Bond, and when he turns heel, it feels like a parable about the risks of a target audience turning that bullseye right back around. But while the morose psych profiling scattered through Skyfall and Spectre reaches its peak here, so too do all the classic components. The vodka martinis, the three-piece suits, the shootouts, the globetrotting. Call it just playing the hits, but the series is the best it's ever been at threading a needle between goofy, gadget-oriented antics and more grounded, gritty action. We get a henchman with a detachable cyborg eye nicknamed Cyclops, infectious nanomachines reprogrammed for world domination, and the most and best one-liners of any Craig outing. At one point, dudes free fall down an elevator shaft by donning what appear to be mocap suits and covering the walls and magnets which ease the descent. Precisely the ridiculous yet plausible tech I love to see in my spy thrillers. There's even a comedic sidekick of sorts, a cartoonishly accented punch bag of a Russian scientist who tags along with Bond and company due to his entanglement in both villains' schemes. It may be a more contentious franchise trademark, but the ladies are out in full force as well. Ana de Armas lights up the screen as a gorgeous, guileless CIA agent who kicks all kinds of butt yet is still adorably giddy at the opportunity to just be out in the field. The part feels like a glorified cameo, but then the 2.5 plus hours could have just been an Anna fan cam and I still would have felt shortchanged. Hats off to a Knives Out reunion at least. Lashana Lynch is a joy as well as Nomi, aka 007's stand-in. Some diehards may be leery of the newly titled Commander Bond having his thunder stolen and his own send-off, but the best frenemies rapport between them as he gets back into action is fun, and she toes the line between Bond girl and straight-up Bond with badass class ripe for a baton pass to 00726. By contrast, no offense to Halle Berry, but that Jinx spinoff was never gonna happen.
Yo mama.
In keeping with the Craig continuum, the film is stocked with breathtaking shots of rolling fields, cliffside cities, and frozen lakes, only a few of which bear any apparent CGI makeup. Roger Deakins may no longer be calling the shots, but there's still plenty of striking images, like a firefight across neon-lit streets of Santiago, the blood-red glow of a ship sinking behind Bond as he flees a maritime assault, and the claustrophobic yet expansive confines of Blofeld's cell, a tight hallway opening to a chamber flanked by infinity mirrors. Along the way, though, the story is mostly a chain of find X at Y assignments, locating the sniveling scientist, then Blofeld, then Madeline, then Safin, and most importantly, Bond finding himself. As PG-13 blockbusters are wont to do, the sex and violence can only get so heavy, and most if not all of the memorable action beats, Bond taking a Tarzan leap off a bridge, doing a sick motorcycle jump, getting into a near miss with a sunroof, were in the trailer. What you saw there is about all you see here. The outstanding exception is a tense sequence where a fleet of Range Rovers, true to their name, pursue Bond into a misty forest, roaring like distant beasts as he strains to outsmart them through the fog and ferns. Also, as is now justly required by law, there's a long-take battle sequence in a stairwell. Yet as the stark style of Bourne, Batman, and other mid-aughts muscle who influenced Casino Royale has given way to the colorful, loopy milieu of imitators like Kingsman and Mission Impossible, a lot of No Time to Die's settings feel downright quaint in their sobriety. The aesthetic is also at odds with its attempts to ease back into absurdity. When this brutish, brooding Bond cracks wise, it feels less like comic relief and more like someone sharing a meme during a funeral. Okay, that's funny, but is this really the time? Not only that, but in trying to wrap up the character development but its predecessors seemingly strained to flesh out, it's all over the map even more than its set pieces. The inciting incident stems from Bond being so hung up on Vesper that Blofeld knows he'll visit her grave even while chilling with Madeline. Granted, if I had a fling with Ava Green, I'd still be down bad after 15 years, but where was this baggage between Skyfall and now? Madeline hints at secrets of her own, but the initial twist that she's a Spectre asset is apparently just a troll by Blofeld, while the reveal that she has a daughter comes after that tease, so what was she talking about? Sometimes the film brings legit tension out of Bond processing feelings of betrayal and desperation, as when he silently glowers behind the wheel of his Aston Martin while bullets pepper the glass and Madeline pleads for him to move. But this long-form experiment to sincerely pathologize 007 still feels like a bust on balance. Having directed the first and best season of True Detective, Fukunaga knows how to frame stories about men of action worn down by bad romance and twisted criminals. However, he can only play with the hand he's been dealt, and it's not much. If the emotional arc here is supposed to be about Bond moving through the stages of grief, I guess closing with acceptance is fitting, but to get there means being stuck on denial for quite a while. In turn, the fundamental conflict of Bond 25 suffers from a lack of definition. The film really wants to hammer home that these nanobots, a product of Project Heracles, always gotta have an ominous Greek name for these things, were meant to be used for war, they just weren't supposed to go that hard. It's as exciting a premise as when Agent Cody Banks did it, yet unlike, say, The Terminator or Transcendence, the mechanical nature of the bots is heard but not seen. Save for how they can be coded to only attack certain genes, it might as well just be a traditional disease. Turning the love and loneliness which plague Bond into an actual pathogen is a functional fusion between the head and heart of the movie, but it struggles as anything beyond metaphor, because really, what sense does it make to not be able to just remove the things or hack them after the fact? With this superficial functionality in mind, the attempt at commentary on modern Black Ops and weapons designed to save lives rings as hollow as a Call of Duty campaign. Rami Malek is good in general as the big bad, a prominent deformity and all. Rami's got a Best Actor Oscar under his belt, so he scarcely needs my vote of confidence, but I still somehow feel like a proud father seeing him graduate from Ben Stiller's second fiddle in a video game dead meat to the coveted post of a capital V Bond villain. If nothing else, he's got an all-timer of a hidden lair. A poison garden, in a Zen garden, in an abandoned missile silo, on a private island, in disputed Japanese-Russian waters. Unfortunately, though, the man himself is a question mark big enough to make the Riddler envious. Safin, as he's known with his Japanese theater mask, is presumptively a nod to the original Dr. No, but everything from his motives to his resources are scarcely addressed. So he wants to topple Spectre, sure, take a number. But how did he become the head of an organization big enough to actually do it? For how long did he raise Madeline, and how and why did she leave him? Why exactly does he even want to kill millions of people instead of just calling it a day after Blofeld goes cold? How old is he even supposed to be if he was a grown man when Madeline was a tween? And, is he supposed to be part Japanese, or is he just a weeaboo with a world-sized power level? And the temptation to one-up preceding films of an even more nefarious villain is typical, but when the continuity already established, retroactively or not, that Spectre held all the pieces when it comes to international evil-doing, the sudden appearance of a new troublemaker requires answers that don't even get questions. As the mangled mirror of Bond, complete with a "we're not so different, you and I" monologue, I guess the parallel of orphans turned into self-loathing killers is something to chew on, but it's far too tough to swallow. And as a light spoiler to segue into stray thoughts, we get Daddy Bond for the first time, or it's the first time literally. How Maddie and Bond's relationship evolves as a result, and the melancholy of what could have been had he actually, finally, for real, relaxed and gotten off the MI6 payroll, is ostensibly the dramatic fulcrum, and it is something new for 007. It's certainly not anything new for action cinema in general, though, and the Taken-esque domestic stakes brought to the proceedings are too little too late, at least with a kid actor this middling. Okay, stray thoughts. So, as was a 50% chance, given the title, James Bond dies in this movie. Not since Rogue One has lead in a major Hollywood release been so unambiguously nuked on screen, but to be honest, I'm fine with it. Not to get into the geopolitics of espionage fiction, but it's weird that there's apparently no consequences to the threat that doing so could start World War III. Still, as the swan song to the James Bond of a new millennium, it's audaciously conclusive. That being said, with 20 plus competitors in its own lineage, this hobbles the movie's rewatchability. 007 adventures are formulaic yet varied enough that choosing which films merit repeat viewing can hinge on very particular distinctions. And the visual NyQuil that is Quantum of Solace aside, the Craig movies handle this pretty well. We could watch the one where Bond fights the Joker, or the one with the largest explosion in any movie ever. Hey, do you want to watch the one where he gets sad and dies? Might have worked for Logan as the send-off for a long-standing paternal action hero, but against scenes like this... I think the choice is clear. At least the last time I saw a nuanced take on a square-jawed gunman contemplate his mortality as the missile launch he called closes in on a World War II-era military base, I got to fight a giant robot beforehand. For as much time as Bond's caretakers had to chart out the Craig pentology's curtain fall, all the more so mid-pandemic, there's also a twisted irony in how many major players die a rushed, unceremonious death. Felix loses his ninth life by drowning akin to Vesper, but the same significance can't be gleaned from how Spectre's antagonist gets iced. After a whole film hyping up how he was Bond's arch-nemesis and setting the stage for future confrontations, Christoph Waltz's Blofeld spends his entire screen time shackled and sitting in a cage, with an odd camera angle that makes his hands and forearms look really tiny, not helping any latter-day Dr. Evil comparisons. He's basically the standard mad genius turned counselor for 5 minutes, and then Bond accidentally kills him by not practicing nanobot social distancing. An abrupt demise for a significant character can be indelible in its own right, but it's been long enough since that last Bond that I didn't feel nearly the connection to these characters that I gathered that I was supposed to. Billie Eilish delivers a solid title theme over a suitably clock-centric opening credits, which also includes a DNA helix made out of guns. What I imagine Rambo's blood looks like under a microscope. We learned that the hacked nanobot gas which Blofeld unleashed killed every member of Spectre except him, which... No, it didn't. They don't even let the president and the vice president fly together. Nobody would arrange for every free member of the Octopus Illuminati to be together in a tiny ballroom in Cuba simultaneously, even to watch James Bond die. Both old and new 007 get injected with traceable smart blood before dropping into Safin's HQ, which, when combined with nanobots Bond gets, has got to make a serious intravenous Arnold Palmer. With the film's events hinging on a contagious biohazard getting loose, I can't help but wonder if the delay on account of COVID wasn't just because of low audience numbers, but because this hits a little too close to home. A trove of Spectre data which Q hacks into contains countless files with the prefix Geno, suggesting that Blofeld's most sinister plot was keeping a certain beloved action figure out of Smash Bros. The film manages the commendable feat of making Bond's literal and figurative opening shot finally canonical, although it's framed in such a way that we still don't actually see who he's killing. Wallace and Gromit is playing on a television in the beginning, which only furthers my theory that those two have to have connections with British intelligence to pull off a civilian moon landing and acquire a set of robotic pants. During a particularly high-stakes hacking session of Q, a computerized voice says, "Blofeld's eyeball unlocked," which is a very specific thing to have an audio notification for. Also, it's implied that that eyeball is shared between Cyclops and Blofeld, although we don't see this in action, presumably because another Heracles-related film already did it a sight better. What are those swirling black things that were in the tanks along the wall overlooking Safin's lab? I kept expecting some eels to make an appearance, although maybe I'm just pining for a Cure for Wellness rewatch. The sight gag of Q having a drawer full of Chinaware in between Bond's loadouts ends up being appropriate, as Madeline later splashes Cyclops of hot tea to make her getaway. Spectre tries to trip up Bond during a car chase by forcing a shepherd to usher his flock onto the road, proving that not only does the deep state exist, so does the sheep state. And on that note, big ups to MGM for still having a character named Q who's a government white hat in 2021. I would not want to see Ben Wishaw's Facebook inbox right now, though. Overall, I'd give this film a 7 out of 10. Craig has always been an apt surname for the longest Bond's actor, as the sub-series that he's championed is sharp, yet rough. constantly swinging back and forth between new trends and old homages, seeking relevance as the gentleman's action franchise in an era where flicks can barely even go straight to streaming if they don't have at least one species of alien in them. For the most part, No Time to Die succeeds in capping its legacy, with beautiful sets and stars, exciting practical action sequences, and plenty of levity amongst the grim goings-on. But when it comes to fulfilling the promise implied all the way back in 2006, of a more cohesive, multi-dimensional James Bond, of a toll that a license to kill can take on a man and those he cares for, it struggles as if caught in a cunning death trap of its own. Indecisive to the end, the film is climatic yet lopsided, bombastic yet bleak. As the tagline once went, nobody does it better. And when it comes to scope and talent on both sides of the camera, that's still true. But in the bittersweetness of knowing that a new 007 will be on assignment soon enough, I'm eager to see how the series matures from here, however much time that might take.